Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Whitney Gaskins and welcome to Cincinnati's own Music Hall. This is where our adventure continues. I hope you checked out our Beethoven episode of Stimulating Adventures because today we're learning all about acoustics. Come enjoy the tour.
Good morning, hello. My name's Gayle Hotzenroder and I'm here at Music Hall to talk to you today about sound, about vibrations, and about acoustics. Those are three big words, but they're really they play with one another. They have a lot to do with one another, and you can't have one without the other. I'm here with my cello today. I'm also here with my friend Julian, who's over here.
Hello, my name is Julian. It's nice to meet you all.
And we also have Miss Lynn, and Miss Linda, and also Miss Nancy, who are part of we're all members of Friends of Music Hall. And our purpose is to preserve and educate the community with music and this building. So today we're going to start with the beginning of this sound, and I wanted to share with you the building, the auditorium, which originally looked much different. And Julian has a picture of how Music Hall looked when it was constructed and opened in 1878. It was built to have for the first May Festival choruses that we have today, which is one of the resident groups that is here in Music Hall, along with the symphony and the pops, occasionally the ballet, and the Cincinnati Opera. We have all kinds of different things that have happened to this building in different renovations, but the most recent one was in 2017 when this music hall was acoustically tuned and all the walls were brought in. And the original configuration, because in 1878 there was no electricity, we had 8 windows on each side, great big windows to let in light. And then they had gas chandeliers to give us more light in the ceiling, only 13 of those. So the light that came in from all the windows on the side was very important. But today they're all bricked up, and for 2 reasons. One, for the air conditioning that went in 1968, and 2, for the acoustics of this hall. And I really don't need to have a microphone on, because this building actually has such wonderful acoustics. Anyone can hear me when I'm speaking without a microphone. So anyhow, the sound that we have here in this hall is pretty terrific. Do you have a diagram of what our acoustics look like in this hall?
Yeah, this is an irregular setup. We're getting ready for opera, where they kind of break back the acoustic panels that usually sit behind the orchestra. And there used to be these panels that would sit above that would help redirect sound towards the audience. This is what it looks like when the orchestra plays. You can see those panels right behind the screen that kind of keep the sound more contained. And then these panels above, they look like turtles. They serve a purpose too. When Gayle is going to play, or even when we're talking, if you put your hands on your neck, you can feel your whole body or your neck is vibrating. Those vibrations travel out in a huge circle, and they bounce and reflect off of all the surfaces in the building, and it kind of looks like this whenever we make sound. The speaker, whenever I talk to you, there's a direct sound that goes to you, but my sound is also traveling that way, hitting a wall, and bouncing back to find a way to you. Something else that's important to how sound interacts is shape. So whenever something bounces off a surface, the shape of that surface is very important. If it's a flat surface, like the floor we have, it'll bounce off at the angle that it hit. But not every surface is flat. I'm sure you can see around here there's a lot of decorations, a lot of beautiful ornamentations. Those are uneven. And sound hits those uneven surfaces and they send sound everywhere. They go throughout the entire building, not in a straight line. There are 2 shapes that are really important for this hall. One shape is this bowl shape that you see here. When sound hits that bowl, it kind of comes inwards, and then there's a reverse shape, which we don't have an example of here today, because that's what those little bowls above used to do. They would send out everywhere. But I do have an example for you that you can try out at home. If you take a bowl, and if I speak into it like this, I'm sorry if the microphone clips. If I talk like this, it's going to sound really loud and kind of come right back at me. That kind of is gating the sound and putting it into the middle. If you look at this beautiful arc that you see here, it's shaped like a big bowl. When they have those panels behind, that big bowl sends sound out that way. It collects it all into this middle point. If I try to do the same thing and talk into the bowl like this, I don't quite get the same effect. It kind of just sends it off into every direction. So those are two shapes that are really, I think, important into this hall.
I think that is very good. Thank you. Another thing that's important is those vibrations, and that's why I brought my cello today. String instruments, with the string instrument family, you can see the actual vibrations of the strings. So for example, when I pull my bow across the string, if you look carefully, you can see the string vibrate. I'll do that again. And that is a low sound, and you can really see the string vibrating. But here's a higher string. You really have to work to see that vibration happening. So when I play my cello, I change the length of the string, making it from low to high. For example, I'll start with this string open, and then I'll move and shorten the string. And it makes the sound go up. But when I make the string longer, it makes the string lower. So longer strings, lower sound, shorter strings, higher sound. And so when you see people playing and they put their fingers down, they're changing the distance of the string. So for example, I just changed the length of the string for every note. Now there's other notes in between there, but the important thing is to know that as we go down, we shorten the string and raise the number of vibrations in the pitch, and as we come back, it gets lower and longer. I thought I would play a little example for you from a composer that lived back in the 1600s and early 1700s, Johann Sebastian Bach. And he wrote music for the cello to be played and the violin to be played without a piano part or without orchestral accompaniment, as well as being its own instrument. So when I'm playing this, I'm actually accompanying myself. So I'll play a little of this Bach suite in G. You can see as I'm putting my fingers down, I have changed the pitch, and part of the sound is being created here with this bow. And what I do, you notice I'm not playing like this, and I'm not playing like that. I'm playing perpendicular to the string at 90 degrees, because each string has windings, and these are horsehairs, and they catch the string and make it vibrate. So that's a very important factor. But we also make sound on stringed instruments a little bit differently than the wind instruments. We use pizzicato. And where would we be without very important to be able to play pizzicato. In addition, we can strum. So the string instruments are very versatile. We have many different sound effects that we can do. In this space, this is pretty cool to be playing the cello in this wonderful auditorium space. So I invite you to come to Music Hall, to come to our Springer Auditorium and experience some of this sound yourself. Welcome to the Taft Suite in Music Hall. This is a wonderful space. It is a new space in Music Hall. Originally, if you were here in 1878, you would see nothing but brick walls and a cobblestone street right here in front of you. This actually is space captivated for Music Hall during the 2017 renovation, and it used to be the carriageway. And also they would bring things into the South Hall, large exhibits into our South Hall, which you're not going to get to see all of today. You'll get to see the ballroom. But that's one of the spaces that's to our south. And if you look to this direction, you can see a large archway and what was a doorway. It's now bricked in, and that was used to carry in large trees and plants, furniture, automobiles, all kinds of things that they exhibited in the South Hall. So that is why that is there. And it's all bricked up, no more doors. And then if you look on the other side, you can see the windows to where Music Hall was. That was outside, and there was a doorway here, and they had entrance to Music Hall because back in the day, it was very difficult for people to walk on some of the streets because horses and cows and pigs and different animals, as well as just the dirt roads, would come in on the hoofs of animals and would be out in the street, and people were dressed in their Sunday best. And when they came in their carriage, it was clean here, and they didn't get their feet and their clothing dirty. So this is why we have this space today. But now this Taft Suite has been made into something marvelous. We have this lovely acoustical ceiling that makes it a great recital hall. It's also a meeting place, and it's also a place to display some of the hand carving wooden panels from the Hook and Hastings organ. And Julian, would you show them and refresh their memory about the original formation of Music Hall and show them the Hook and Hastings organ? This organ was made in Boston and brought to Music Hall to be a part of the vocal ensembles that would perform here. You could do all the Bach or the Handel oratorios, all the Bach masses, all these things that included an organ with that instrument. The Hook and Hastings organ was 60 feet tall. Now, it's hard to think about 60 feet, but I am 5 feet tall. Well, I'm 5 feet 3, okay? But imagine 12 of me standing on top of my head. But that would be how tall that pipe organ would be in the very tallest pipes. And then it was 50 feet wide. That's a really big space. That would be 10 of me laying on my side. And then it was 30 feet deep. And that would be 3 of me on my side, I guess. But that'd be 30 feet. Be 6 of me, excuse me. So that way you have all these different panels that had to cover some of that space. Because all those pipes, my goodness, they had over 6,000 pipes. It was huge. It was an amazing organ. In the littlest pipe, it was only maybe a little less than an inch. It was a tiny guy. And the big ones were 32 feet tall. They were so big. So this organ was huge. And these panels are just a few of 121 panels that were made to cover that organ. And they were all made by ladies that carved them by hand, not by machines, all by hand. And they did this for a hobby. They took classes to learn how to do it. So it's pretty special place to be in here, because a lot of people, even carve their initials in these panels. It's wonderful. So when you come to visit, we're going to show you these and you'll get to see them firsthand. Very, very cool. Well, the difference in this hall for a performer performing and being in the auditorium is huge. Number one, it's a smaller space. Number two, we have carpet on the floor here. There is carpeting in Music Hall, but it's not so cavernous. It's not so big. So we are losing some of our sound, but we do have some plastic over some of these wood panels behind me. So that helps give us some acoustics in here. So I'm going to play that same excerpt, and then I'm going to have Julian show you the science of how that sound was created in this space, okay? So here I go, the same thing that I just played before. So it doesn't ring as much in here. Can you tell that? Can you hear it's not as ringy? It's not quite as loud either, but I didn't change the way I played it. The trick was the acoustics. So Julian, share your magic.
So Gailey brought up one thing immediately that was very important. This space is not nearly as big as the auditorium that we were in. Sound moves really fast, about 667 miles per hour. In a space like Springer, it has so much time to ring out and bounce around each wall. But here, we're so much more constrained that the sound just bounces off. And every time sound bounces off a surface, it weakens a bit and a bit. So when it has so much less time to bounce around, that sound kind of fades away a lot quicker. Gailey also mentioned the carpet, and that's really important too. The auditorium does have carpets and cushions on all the chairs, and those are objects that help kind of trap or absorb the sound. I talked a little bit about shape in the auditorium, but material is also really important too. Some material is really good at bouncing surfaces off, such as the plastic on the panels or the bricks on the walls to our side. But some materials are a little better at kind of absorbing, like softer materials, like the carpet that we're on or curtains behind a stage. I think the size of the space, being so much smaller, having more carpet direct underneath, I think kind of help make that sound fade out a lot quicker than it did in the auditorium.
So we've now learned about the space, and we've learned about the surfaces. We've learned about the vibrations. Now I just want to talk about one other small thing that is actually a big thing, and that is the difference in size of what instrument is being created, and that even begins with your voice. If you have longer vocal cords, you're going to sing low. You're going to be a low song singer. But if you have shorter and tighter vocal cords, you're going to be one of these people that talks really high and sings soprano, okay? And then there's the rest of us that have the normal length vocal cords. But that brings up something very important, and that is that all instrument families have different sizes for different kinds of voices, if you will. So for example, in the string family, we have the violin, and we have the viola. This particular instrument that I have right here actually is almost the size, it's a little bit larger than a violin, but I brought it because it's a smaller instrument, but it's much thicker than a violin. It is a junior viola. And I use that because when I teach, I'll go back and forth between violin and viola, and it's a lot easier to play viola because it's an octave above the cello, but it reads different music than any other instrument. And then, so we have the violin that is the soprano voice, the viola that is the alto, the cello that is the tenor, and then we have the big string bass. So we have those four instruments of the orchestral string family. In the orchestral wind family, we have the smallest is the flute or piccolo, they're different. There is an oboe, and it's played differently than the flute. These are woodwinds. And they have wood reeds that make sound. There's a clarinet. Clarinet has one reed. There is a bassoon, which is lower. That's the tenor. He's the buddy of the cello in the woodwind family. There is the contrabassoon, which also is a double reeded instrument. They have two reeds, and you probably think of a double reed instrument when you hear the snake charmer going nee 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 nee, and that's usually done with an oboe or a double reeded instrument. It has another name, but I forget. It's Northern African, and I have forgotten. But it is very important to know that. And in the brass family, we have the trumpet as the soprano, the French horn as the alto, but the French horn goes back and forth between woodwinds and the brass. We'll talk about that another day. We have the trombone that is the tenor, like the cello, and then we have the tuba that is like the string bass. So once again, our 4 sizes, different sounds, going from high to low. And then our percussion family has all kinds of different instruments. They have metallophones, like cymbals that crash. They have bells, they're made of metal, but they're tuned. We have timpani that are big round kettle drums, and those are tuned as well. They have pedals on that stretch the heads. When you have the head on a drum, a bass drum or a snare drum, those are called membraphones. So when you have those instruments, a lot of them can be stretched to tune. Then finally, last but not least, we have what we call an idiophone. That would be something like claves or castanets, like what Sebastian the crab in Little Mermaid uses with his claws. He makes castanet sounds. There's all kinds of instruments that make sound, but they're not necessarily tuned in any way. But the percussion family is huge, and we could spend a whole class lesson on percussion. I don't want to digress. But I wanted to remind you that we do have all these different instruments in each of our families, and they all make sound through making vibrations. And there's a lot of, each one has its own science. So, all right, that's another lesson for another day. We'll move to a new space. Okay, we are in the foyer, which is the entryway of Music Hall. And I've often thought, oh my goodness, it reminds me of a beautiful ballroom in a castle. And when you see Music Hall from the outside, it looks very much like a castle. This floor that you see around me is all marble, and it also has some slate. It's the original floor from the year 1878. There have been millions of people that have walked across this floor and looked up at this beautiful space that we have here in the foyer. There's a balcony up above, and the balcony has what we call torche lighting, and there's lights up there to keep this area nice and lit throughout the performances. And during the intermission time, people come out here and get refreshments. So it's a lovely space. But if you notice, it's very big, and it's very tall ceilings like in the auditorium. And notice my voice is echoing in this spot. So it's because we have different surfaces that allow the sound to bounce around and create reverberation. So in a minute, after I play a few chords on the cello, I'm going to have Julian talk to you about reverberation in this space and how the sound is made. So I'm going to go ahead and play a few chords with the bow on the cello. And it keeps going. I love it. Okay, well, talk to them about the space and our reverberation.
Yeah, so this space, Gailey already mentioned it, is a lot taller and a lot longer than the Taft Suite we were just in. The floors are also made of marble, and they are a surface that helps it reflect out a lot more. And there's no carpet until we get to the edges over there, so there's nothing really trying to trap the sound in this wide space. Everything is reflective, and a surface like this allows it to bounce. If you take a tennis ball and try and bounce it on carpet, it's not going to kind of come back and meet you halfway. I think the height of the space is really what helps it reverberate for a while.
I agree. Well, it's a lot of fun to play in here because you can hear yourself. It's really loud, but you can't hear the individual notes as clearly. So I'll play a little bit of the first excerpt that you've heard in the other two spaces, and then I'll play something short and crisp and see what you think about comparing and contrasting the two different kinds of sound in this giant space with a flat surface all the way around. Okay, here's what I played before. Now, here's something a little bit shorter, and let's see what you think. So that gives you an idea of whether the notes are better playing long. Ooh, not a good sound. And as they fill up the space, or do they blur when you're playing short? That's something you're going to have to decide with your ear when you are in an acoustic space. So we've now had an example of the auditorium, which is a very big, perfectly tuned hall acoustically. We've had the Taft Suite, which is a small recital space. And now we have this great open foyer, which is marvelous. I love it. I love bringing people in here so they feel like kings and queens as they walk in. It's supposed to feel that way. All right, we're going to go now to the ballroom here in Music Hall, which is another totally different kind of space. And we have a little surprise for you in that hall as well. Welcome to the Music Hall Ballroom. It's one of the largest ballrooms that, when it was first constructed, in this part of the United States. And originally, though, it was not a ballroom. It originally was a conservatory for plants. And the original ceiling used to be glass. It used to be a giant, giant greenhouse. And we had all kinds of plants and trees in here. We had creeks and rivers that flowed. And at one time, they even had an alligator that lived here in this part of Music Hall. This was made into a ballroom in 1927, and they made an actual ceiling and changed and made acoustical walls and put wood floors. And the offices for Music Hall are now below us on the first floor. So this particular hall has had probably the most drastic changes acoustically and physically for use anyway here in Music Hall. The acoustics are totally different, and Julian's going to tell you a little bit more about how this space is different from all the other spaces we've had.
So we've seen 3 spaces already. We've seen a very large box auditorium that had a bowl that kind of pushed things forward towards the audience. We had a very small space with carpeted floors and brick walls where sound was a little drier or there wasn't as much reverberations. And then we had the beautiful foyer that had marble floors and was a big, long, very tall box where there was a lot of lingering vibrations when Gailey played. Notice the floors, they're all made of wood. Wood does not reflect as much as marble does, so it's absorbing some of that sound. It's a lot, not as tall as the foyer. And if we talk and listen about shapes, the top of the ballroom is shaped as another big arc, which kind of brings sound back down to the middle. I would definitely say this room feels a bit drier, or not as
live.
Not as live as the foyer was, or as the Springer was. This is a place for dance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And loud bands and disc jockeys and all kinds of things that we have here. This is also the home of the mighty Wurlitzer organ. And behind me, you can see all the grid work, and there are actually a bunch of what we call baffles that open and close, and all the pipes for that organ are back there. And we're going to give you a sneak peek at what it looks like back behind these baffles and the other instruments that are in there, as well as the organ pipes. We have metal pipes, wood pipes, we have drums, we have bells, we have triangles, we have cymbals, we have all horns, we have all kinds of things back there. That organ with special buttons, when you push it, it makes all those instruments back there sound. It also was used in the days it was created for silent movies. And that was back in the 1920s. And they, sadly, by the time they finished this particular organ, they came out with talkies and sound in movies. So there were only a few chances for people to hear all of the wonderful things this organ can do with the silent movies. In the meantime, Friends of Music Hall were given a donation to refurbish the mighty Wurlitzer organ, and it is now, we have concerts here in the ballroom, and the organ is attached to a grand piano so that it can play both the piano and the organ at the same time. So if you can imagine, there's a lot of sound that can come from this instrument, and this is the perfect hall for it. But I'm going to play our little excerpt from Bach, good old Bach, so that you can hear the difference of the sound this cello makes in this room with all the tables and chairs set up that we have behind us, and the wood floors and the baffles behind me. Okay, so you can hear it's much more muffled in this sound. It's more like playing in the Taft Suite, that small recital hall, than it is playing from the auditorium or the foyer, which are much more lively in the sound. But in the meantime, I think it's time to go exploring back behind the organ. So we'll go ahead and take that opportunity, and then I think you would probably like to hear that organ play.